Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. I think I need to. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. So I wanted to, this section today is very wonderful because it's a conclusion of Narada Muni's life story and what lessons we can learn from it specifically. So please pay attention to the lessons we get from today. And then we'll also hear what Narada Muni did after getting instruction from the Bhakti Vedantas like that also today. Yeah, I don't know how much proof. Whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Sure, Prabhuji. Can you hear me, Prabhuji? Okay.
Yes, Prabhu, very clear. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Let me invoke the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottama Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tattva Jaya Tudhirayat Nashtaprayasa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtake. Today we are gonna read chapter 533 to 40 and chapter 6, Canto 1, from text 1 to 15. So we're gonna start text 33. O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by the very same thing? Text 34. Thus, when all a man activity are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of the work. Text 35. Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga or transcendental loving service to the Lord. And what is called knowledge become a concomitant factor. Text 36. While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him and his name, his qualities. Text 37. Let us all chant the glories of the Vasudeva, along with his plenary expansion, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshna. Text 38. Thus, he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who has no material form. Text 39. O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, as inculcate in the confidential part of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with his intimate loving service. Text 40. Please therefore describe the Almighty Lord's activity, which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas, and for that will satisfy the hankering of great learned men and at the same time mitigate the miseries of the masses of a common people who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries. Chapter 6, Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. Text 1. Sutta said, O Brahmanas, thus hearing all about Sri Narada's birth and activities, Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God and son of Satyavati, inquire as follows. Vyasadeva, text 2. Sri Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in the scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? Text 3. O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation? How did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course? Text 4. O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So, how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by the time? Text 5. Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. Text 6. I was the only son of my mother who was not only a simple woman, but maid servant as well. Since I was her only offering. She had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection. Text 7. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of the puppet master. Text 8. When I was a mere child of a 5 year, I lived in a Brahmana school and I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different land. Text 9. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by the serpent, influenced by the supreme time. Text 10. And I took this as a special mercy of the Lord, who always desired benediction for his devotee, and so thinking I started for a north. Text 11. After my departure, I passes through many flourishing metropolities, town, villages, animals, farms, mines, agricultural land, valleys, flower gardens, nursery garden, and natural forest. Textual. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoir of various minerals like gold, silver, copper, and through tracts of land with reservoir of water filled with beautiful lotus flower, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds. Text 13. I then passed along through many forests of rushes, bamboo reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yard of snake, owls, and jackals. Text 14. Thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. Text 15. After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree, in an uninhabited forest, I began to meditate upon the super soul situated within, using my intelligence as I had learned from liberated soul. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I think I need to stop in text 15. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Himanshu Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So, so it's a very nice section, very instructive section. It's a very interesting section too. Like what we covered in the last session Friday, especially the Narada's previous life, as described by Vasudeva. So, as we discussed, the two main themes for this section today. One is about what can we learn from Narada's life, specifically Narada's conclusion of instructions to Vyasadeva and what he should do. And then also we'll hearing some more about Narada's life again. So, as you know, the context here was that Saunak Rishi, who was representative of sages of Naimisaranya, was asking the question to Sudha Goswami to explain uh, the situation or circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam came about like that, and asking about Vyasadev's activities also in that context of Srimad Bhagavatam compilation like that. So that is what is going on. To explain that, uh, Narada Muni directly indicated in the previous in this chapter only, beginning of this chapter, we heard after Narada Muni appeared, he directly mentioned that you do not sufficiently glorify Supreme Lord in your scriptures that you wrote so far, number one. Number two, you made overemphasis for normal things, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which is naturally emphasizing more of enjoyment for people who are already naturally inclined like that. So those two things he diagnosed immediately as soon as he came. And then he further indicated a solution of how he should glorify the Supreme Lord sufficiently through the scripture by meditating in the trance. So that is the section we are in. And then after giving those instructions, in the Friday, we discussed how Narada Muni started to tell his life story in concise form to give the main instruction that the by glorifying the Supreme Lord, by doing Bhakti Yoga, how anybody can be successful. Even he, Narada Muni, was a son of a maid servant, still he became successful like that. That is the intent of describing of his life story. That's why, with that intention, he stuck to the principles and made it very brief. Not, you know what, I did this, you know what, I did this. He didn't go to that biography detail to explain what he did like that. He wanted to explain the principle. That's why he went through quickly. So we'll go through some of them. So let me see, text 33 onwards we're starting, right? Okay. Yeah. Actually, 32 onwards, the new section starts. So I'll briefly go back to 32 verse and we'll continue. So basically, if you remember, so far what happened was Narad Muni was a son of a maid servant, and he got the opportunity to meet Bhaktivedantas. And even if you don't remember anything, one thing we can remember is Narada Muni became so great as Narada Muni, spiritually enlightened by the association of pure devotees. That's the one point you can remember, even if you don't remember anything, details and everything. Just by association of pure devotees, all good things can happen to us. They can give mercy to us. We can get opportunity to serve them, and we can get opportunity to hear Krishna Katha by association of pure devotees, and then by hearing Krishna Katha from them, by serving them, we get attraction to hear Krishna Katha, and our attraction and taste for Krishna Katha and hearing about Krishna will increase and more and more, more and more like that. And then just by through association, sometimes we get opportunity to take their Mahaprasadam, and by hearing Krishna Katha and by serving them, by taking their Mahaprasadam, will basically can get purified and develop attraction for Krishna. So that is the whole essence of the pastime that he describes so far, just by association of pure devotees. So through that, now in text 32, he's describing how the principles of karma yoga essentially is saying that everybody can engage whatever they have in service of Krishna like that. That's how they can be purified and they can be spiritually enlivened and enlightened like that. So text 32, what was showing was, is saying the best remedial measure for removing all the troubles and miseries is to dedicate our activities in service of Krishna. This is not advocating that the moment we dedicate all our activities in service of Krishna, all our problems will go away immediately. But through the Narada's example itself, we'll see how it will give us higher understanding and spiritual strength so we can deal with the material troubles right now, but make a permanent solution for all material troubles. That is what is being indicated here. That's one main principle. So, so basically, by hearing and submissively about the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources is the remedial process. That's how Prabhupada paraphrases the verse again in the purport. So, so point is that we might try to do this, try to do that, try to do that to make our life comfortable, enjoyable, without any problems like that. But we should understand, unless it's sanctioned by Krishna, none of them can be successful. That doesn't mean we become lazy and complacent and not do anything. We do our endeavor, but with the understanding that our soul and primary energy should go towards engaging in Krishna's service. That is the main thing we need to do. So, in fact, purport Prabhupada elaborately describes whatever great skills we have, whatever great resources we have, we should engage in Krishna services. He explains, if you have a lot of, if you're a learned scholar, a scientist, philosopher, we can prove how everything is source is Krishna like that. For example, use that scholarship like that. And then if you have a lot of money, use that to engage in Krishna service. Give them opportunity for people to come and hear Krishna Katha, people to come and engage in Kirtan, come to temple and engage in festivals like that. So they get a spiritual experience. So like that, Prabhupada is emphasizing, whatever we have, we should engage in service of Krishna. So the one way to engage in service of Krishna is to engage everything for preaching purposes, like that he describes. So now going to the next verse. Now the natural question may come. So actually, by doing different karmas, different activities, we got into this situation of repeated cycle of birth and death. Then how can we do the same work again for Krishna? And how can we get out of this cycle? It seems like we'll keep on going in cycle if we do more work like that. We should rather stop work like that. So that then Narada Muni answering that question in two verses. First verse is his example he gives. Example is apparently when you give lot of milk products, you'll get motions, it seems, and diarrhea. But then an expert physician like Ayurveda physician especially, or a naturopathy physician, they utilize curd, it seems, or yogurt mixed with some herbs, it seems, and that can cure the diarrhea. That originally diarrhea also came with milk product, milk itself, milk or milk products. Now the same diarrhea is cured by another milk product with yogurt applied therapeutically. That means mixing with some herbs like that. Not just milk products mixed with some element of herbs like that. So that's the example he gives in this verse. Now, Prabhupada mentions beautifully that if you engage the material things with and in the service of Krishna, that is like applying yogurt with herb, basically changing material conception to spiritual conception in service of Krishna, then that will get purified and that'll give you a therapeutic effect for us also to get out of this cycle of birth and death like that. So that's the 34th verse explains that directly, same point. He says, when our activities are dedicated to service of the Lord, those very activities which cause bondage right now become the destroyer of the tree of the work. So basically, when we engage all our activities in service of Krishna, then like a therapeutic effect, they'll work and we'll get free from the bondage of the work like that. This purport is beautiful because Prabhupada is summarizing the whole pastime of Narada Muni and essential principles in this purport in one paragraph, half of the paragraph actually. Basically says Narada Muni had the pure devotee association. By pure devotee association, he had the opportunity to serve them. Then because of serving pure devotees, he received extraordinary mercy from the pure devotees. Through the mercy of the pure devotees, he received, he got transformed with extraordinary qualities through their mercy of the pure devotees. And then through those qualities, he developed attention and attachment to hear the Krishna Katha. And by hearing Krishna Katha, he developed the Sambandha Gnana. Who is Krishna? Who am I? What is this material world? What can I do with it? Everything is to engage in service of Krishna. He developed the Sambandha Gnana. And through that Sambandha Gnana, now he acted on that knowledge. Not just, oh, I know some beautiful things, not like that. He acted by performing pure devotion service, which we'll hear in the next chapter, how he did whatever he did. Then, by acting in pure devotion service, he got further enlightened with spiritual knowledge of Krishna and also enlightenment of Krishna's direct experience also, which we'll hear in the next few verses also. So that if you notice, everything started with pure devotee association. Nothing else is possible unless we get the pure devotee association. That's the important principle we can remember from the whole pastime. So we should utilize the opportunity for association of pure devotee whenever we get an opportunity. Now going to 35th verse, he says, now is emphasizing the principle of doing everything for satisfaction of Krishna. He says, whatever work is done here in this life for satisfaction of Krishna is called Bhakti Yoga. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. Concomitant factor means it will come compulsorily. It will come generally. mm, Consciousness is a concomitant symptom of a soul. Like that, we hear the word generally. At least I heard the word like that. That means always with the soul like that, consciousness. Similarly, when we do bhakti yoga, the higher knowledge, spiritual knowledge will also come. Like that is being described here. Not that, oh, you need to do this karma, pious activities, you need to develop this knowledge, then only you can do bhakti. Not like that. Through bhakti, all necessary qualifications will come, all necessary purification will come, all necessary development and growth in spirituality will come for us. So basically, as long as we do start doing the work for satisfying Krishna, then we'll get gradually purified of the material affection it is described. And this service of Krishna can start with hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna. That includes the holy name, that includes Krishna's pastimes, like that. So now going to 36th verse, then when doing that work for Krishna, for satisfaction Krishna, what should a devotee do? A devotee constantly remembers him remembers Krishna, Krishna's names, and Krishna's qualities like that. So in this purport, Prabhupada elaborately writes that we should expert devotee molds his life in such a way that he performs all the duties for pleasure of Krishna, and while doing them, he doesn't lose sight of Krishna. He still thinks about Krishna's name, qualities, fame, activities like that he's describing. That means we should always remember Krishna. That's the point Prabhupada is emphasizing. And in this purport, Prabhupada emphasizes how we should engage whatever money we have, excess money we have. He even goes up to 50%, he says, to carry out the orders of Krishna. What are the orders of Krishna? Orders of Krishna is to preach so that everybody can benefit to come towards him. So we can donate towards Krishna's preaching activities. We can engage preaching engagements such a way that people can come and engage in hearing Krishna Katha or engaging in Kirtan, holy name Kirtan, and taking some prasada like that. Because Prabhupada writes in the purport, everybody loves to take prasadam, everybody comes to sing and dance together. So we can engage our money in such a way, utilize our resources in such a way that people get an opportunity to do that basically. That's so Prabhupada emphasizes in this purport. Now going to the next verse, that 7, this verse onwards is described. Narada Muni is disclosing his personal mantra that he chanted. This verse says, Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumnaya Anuruddhaya Nama Sankarshanaya Cha. The purport is elaborate, but essentially it describes the position of expansions of Krishna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Sankarsana, and Pradyumna. Basically, it primarily describes the most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant and remember the glories of Krishna, especially by chanting the mantra given by our Guru to us, which is Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for us in this age. Now going to 30th verse, he says, thus he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation. This purport also is beautiful because at this condition, we're not able to see Krishna personally, directly. So we can worship Krishna by the sound representative of Krishna. Just by utilizing the sound representative of Krishna, by chanting the holy name of Krishna, all perfection is possible. That's what Prabhupada writes in the purport also. So now going to 39th verse, he says, by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with. So now Narada Muni is explaining what was the result of performing Bhakti Yoga for him. First was, he was given transcendental knowledge of Krishna. That's what he got the benefit first result. Second, he says, and he got the spiritual opulences. Prabhupada writes in the purport, pure devotee is also endowed with mystic opulences like that is described, mystic siddhis like that. Then he had the opportunity to do intimate loving service because that is what pure devotee wants. Pure devotee doesn't get interest in getting so much opulences for himself. He wants to engage in service of Krishna. So he got an opportunity to render direct service Krishna. All this is possible through chanting the transcendental sound vibration, like that Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport, with the guidance of a spiritual master. Now, 40th verse is the conclusion that Narada Muni makes in this chapter. Remember, the conclusion is emphasizing what he started with, which is, he says, describe the Lord Krishna's activities, glorify the Lord Krishna's activities in the scripture that you write, like that is concluding. And he says, that will satisfy the hankerings of all great learned men. It will satisfy us. What will satisfy us? Krishna Katha. And it will mitigate the miseries of all masses of common people, like that. So that means learned people will be very happy hearing Krishna Katha, and the common people will get the remedial measure of all the miseries will go away for them, like that is describing. And there's no way to get out of such miseries, like that he says. So in fact, through Narada Muni's example we'll hear in the next chapter, he'll personally show that the miseries in this life also, how we can overcome them, how we can go beyond them. Even though miseries are there, how we can feel that as mercy of Krishna. Like that, he'll show with personal example in the next chapter. Now going to the next chapter is primarily the storyline, especially the first 15 verses we are discussing today, is primarily storyline. Basically, remember Narada Muni described his brief life in the form of giving principles, how by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, his life became perfect, how he achieved the absolute result, like that. So now Narada Muni wants to explore a little bit more. So he asks some questions to know more about Narada Muni life. That's what happens with the first four verses. Basically, he says, um, what did you, Vyasdeva is asking Narada Muni, what did you do after the departure of the Bhaktivedantas, great sages? What did you do? Of course, Prabhupada makes it very clear. These are not just ordinary sages, they are pure devotees like that. So after they instructed you, what did you do? Prabhupada writes in the purport that Narada Muni was inquisitive to know about spiritual master. How did he perfect his life so that he can also follow in the similar lines like that? That's a nice inquisitiveness we could have also. How the great souls became perfect like that. That's how Prabhupada writes in the purport. So now, text 3, Vasudha is asking questions further. How did you pass your life after initiation? And how did you attain this body, which is very transcendental? You came, got the spiritual body of eternal life, bliss, and knowledge. How did you get this body after you got initiation like that? He's asking. And then he asks another question, a logical question. He says, time will annihilate everything in due course of time. Now, what you described is from previous kalpa of Brahma, previous day of Brahma. So then, how is it that you remember all those things in this life also? Like that, he's asking. Sri Prabhupada is giving the answer right away for us in this purport itself. Basically, like how spirit soul is not annihilated with time, only material body is annihilated. Spiritual consciousness is also not annihilated, like that Prabhupada writes. That is why Narada Muni remembers this past life. He is writing, Prabhupada writing purport. Of course, mercy of Krishna also. It's not ordinary for anybody to remember like that. So now text 5 to 10, Narada Muni starts to speak about his past life, specifically how his mother passed away also like that. Text 5, he says, after the Bhaktivedantas departed, I started my life in this way, like that he's saying. So, point here Prabhupada emphasizes is, after heard from Bhaktivedantas, what did he do? His life changed practically. That means he applied the knowledge, not he just heard it, wow, wow, it's a nice class, nice class. No, he applied it practically in his life. That's what Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport. And that's all we are also meant to do after spiritual initiation, after hearing from pure devotees like that, Prabhupada writes in the purport. Now, text 6, he says, I was the only son of my mother. My mother was a simple woman and she was a maid servant also. And I'm her only son. So she was taking care of me with affection. And even though she wanted to take care of me very nicely, but she could not take care of me because she didn't have all the means to take care of me very nicely. Because ultimately she's not in control. Material nature is in control, Supreme Lord is in control. Like that, he describes basically. She's like a wooden doll, like a puppet in the hands of a puppet master, like that. So, notice two things he's noticing. One thing is acknowledging the affection of his mother very nicely, even though she could not give him everything he needed. Number one. Number two, he's acknowledging that his mother is an instrument in the hands of nature and Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate controller. Is recognizing that in these verses. Now, going to text 8, he says, I was just 5 years old and I lived in a Brahmana school and I was dependent solely on my mother's affection. And I had no experience of going to different places. That means he was just in one place only all the time. He didn't have any social knowledge or any general knowledge like that. Now, text 9, he says, my poor mother, one day when she was going out in the night time to milk the cows, that time a snake bit her, influenced by supreme time. He doesn't say, oh, that bad snake bit my mother, not like that. He's saying influenced by time. Snake is just an instrument like that. So Prabhupada writes, this is a way of dragging a sincere soul near to Krishna, Prabhupada writes. So um, even though by taking away his mother, who is his sole shelter, Narada Muni is being taken closer to Krishna by giving his mercy like that. Prabhupada is writing in the purport. Now, Narada Muni personally saying text 10, I took this, my mother going away as a special mercy of Krishna, who always desires benediction for his devotees. Then, like thinking like that, I started going towards north. This is a very important principle. See, Prabhupada also writes that confidential devotees take even distress in their life as a direct as a special mercy of Krishna. So see, just because he's in devotion service, Krishna made everything nice. His mother also went away in the early age, but he got the spiritual strength and knowledge and understanding and intelligence to see that as mercy of Krishna and not to just cry, 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 lament and die like that. That's the beauty of Bhakti Yoga. It gives us spiritual strength to see everything with the bigger picture in relation to Krishna. So now text 11 to 19 is Narada Muni describes about his travel. How did he go? He said he went to north, right? What did he do? How did he do? What is the experience of seeing Krishna personally, hearing Krishna personally like that? He will describe now. He will describe the 5 verses only today. So the Narada Muni describes that he passed through many flourishing metropolis, towns, villages, farms, agriculture lands, valleys, natural forests like that. So Prabhupada drives a point in the purport that he didn't get enamored with all these things he's saying. And he didn't say, oh, let me make some money now. Not like that. Instead, he took the instructions he received from the Bhaktivedantas and he focused on spiritual enlightenment, progressing, practicing spiritual life. That was his focus, not getting distracted with these things. That's the point Prabhupada makes in the purport. Now, going to text 12, he says he went through beautiful places, places filled with beautiful lotus flowers that are fit for denizens of heaven, even, and decorated with bewildered bees, singing birds, reservoirs of minerals like gold, silver, and copper, like that. So, in this verse, he's describing he went through beautiful places. Next verse, he describes very difficult places like that. He says, I passed alone. Alone is the keyword. Nobody's there to support him, to share the travel with him. Through many forests of rushes, bamboo, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerous, fearful forests like that. So Prabhupada makes two important points in the purport. First is great sannyasi like Parivrajikacharya. They need to go through like different circumstances in life. They need to travel depending on Krishna. That is one. That way they can increase for their dependence further on Krishna, like that he describes. Second is they travel like that not to enjoy travel, but to enlighten all of us like that. Another point Prabhupada makes in the purport is that in this age, more than becoming a sannyasi like that and traveling, all of us, majority of the people, we may not have capacity to become sannyasi, leave everything and go travel like that. Instead, Prabhupada is saying our main principle is remembering, hearing, and repeating the holy names of Krishna, holy glories of Krishna like that. And we can stay at one place in a holy place and do that. That way, we can focus on spiritual life and hear and chant glories of Krishna like that. And so many scriptures are left by our acharyas, like Sis Goswami's Prabhupada writes in the purport. So we should be eager to someday read, not only complete all of Prabhupada books, but read our acharya's books also. But we should start with Prabhupada books. Now, in the next verse, 14th verse, he says, while traveling like that, he felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and he became thirsty and hungry. So he took a bath in the river lake and drank some water. And by contacting water, he got relief from exhaustion. Prabhupada writes the beauty of natural gifts that Krishna has given us. Just by taking bath in water, he got refreshed. Just by taking water, his hunger and thirst subsided like that. That's the natural gifts given by Krishna, like that, Prabhupada writes. Now, text 15, the last verse for today. He says, after that, under the shadow of a banyan tree, he sat under the shadow of a banyan tree and then he started meditating on Super Soul using the intelligence and as he had learned from Bhakti Vedantas. That's the important principle. He's not doing something on his own. Oh, let me do this, let me do that, like that. Whatever he learned from pure devotees, from his spiritual masters, that only is following the path directly and is practicing with that. Whether instructions received by spiritual master is practicing in his life. We'll hear tomorrow that he directly hears Krishna just because he's following the instructions of his spiritual master. So we'll continue tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kupasandubhyevacha paditana pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.